It's time for the JMRA Football Podcast, a podcast for the fans, by a fan. Yeah! Here's your host, Derek Jones.
It's time for another edition of the JMRA Football Podcast. I am your host, Derek Jones, with you tonight as we record this Sunday night following Week 1 action, and what an interesting week it was. We've got the rundown for you. We'll go over every game, and we'll get you out of here in a quick for me, quick and orderly fashion as we recap a wild Week 1 of action that saw a lot of ups and a lot of downs and a lot of downs and a lot of ups. And we'll give it all to you, but first, let's go through the social media rundown on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I gotta get used to saying TikTok. It doesn't feel natural to me, but I'll get used to it. You can check us out all there by searching for Joe Montana's Right Arm. It's a very, very intriguing group of games we've got to go over. But first, before we get down to the business of Week 1, I've got 5 takeaways from what we saw that could lead to some clues as far as what we'll see over the next 17 weeks. Number 1, I think this is Tom Brady's last season. The report came out on Sunday from Ian Rappaport that sources are telling him this will be it for Brady. On Sunday Night Football, they kind of alluded to a few options that he had on the table. One is he's going to retire after this season. Another one is he's going right to the broadcast booth right after this season's over. Another one is he's going to take next year off and then go broadcast. Regardless of what the thought process is, he looks like a guy to me who knows he's got a handful of games left. And, you know, we'll get into Sunday Night Football here in a little bit. That's going to be the first game we talk about. But it seems like you're watching the farewell tour. And I think obviously a part of it is he legit stepped away last year. But this time, it does feel like the end. And it sucks because I know a lot of people don't like him. He's my favorite football player, maybe ever. And I've loved watching him throughout his career because of all the passion that he puts into the game. And whether you like him or whether you don't like him, you can't dispute the fact that nobody competes harder than he does. And that will be missed for sure on Sundays or Mondays or Thursdays or whenever he has played throughout the NFL calendar. He's been one of a kind. But we've got plenty of time to write the eulogy on Tom Brady's football career as we go through the 2022 season. Number 2, the Cowboys, the Titans, the Patriots, all going to miss the playoffs. And I got another team on there that I'm very worried about after Week 1 that I'm not going to throw in that group yet, but we will discuss them in full coming up later on. But I think the Cowboys, again, we'll go over Sunday Night Football. Major issue with the Cowboys with Dak now being out for a considerable period of time thanks to the thumb injury. The Titans lost a terrible game at home to the New York Giants. I mean, you can say what you want about the Giants and Saquon and blah, blah, blah. You cannot lose to the Giants in your building in the home opener. You cannot. That was terrible. Just an absolute dog of a loss by the Tennessee Titans. I think you've got the Cowboys, you've got the Titans, and you got the Patriots all in trouble here as far as maybe getting back to the playoffs. The Patriots, they've looked bad in the preseason. They've looked bad in now the regular season, and I don't think it's going to change. And now Mac Jones has a back injury to make matters worse. Man, I don't feel good about their prospects moving forward. I think they have their hands definitely full the rest of the way. Number 3, unless somebody does something of equal value or the Chiefs go in the tank, Patrick Mahomes is going to win MVP again. Because you can already see the narrative. He doesn't have Tyreek Hill. People have said, he can't do it without Tyreek. Me being perhaps one of those people who may have opined about that in my day, But I think that that's a fair statement. However, he threw for over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns against a playoff team. Now, on the road. Now, whether you think the Cardinals are a legitimate team, that's another discussion for another day. But still, that's one hell of a way to open the season with, at least in terms of talent, a diminished set of receivers. You know, Tyreek Hill's one of a kind. You can throw out all the Sky Moores and the Juju Smith-Schusters and Marquez, Valdez, Scantling, all those guys. You can throw them all out there on the field, but none of them can do what Tyreek Hill does or did for the Chiefs. And now it's an opportunity for Kansas City to kind of find a new guy to step in and fill the void. But in the meantime, Mahomes was awesome on Sunday against Arizona. So he has already established himself as an early favorite to win MVP. You'd have to think about him. You'd have to think about Josh Allen. You'd have to think about Justin Herbert as well. I think those are probably the top 3 guys. And I do have another guy who I'm going to beat the drum for at some point if he keeps up with the pace that he has set as of Sunday. But we'll get there in that discussion. Well, actually, we'll get there now. Number 4, I think Minnesota is going to win the North. I know that's crazy. I know that's overreactionary in week 1. But Green Bay and that offense, I know they played badly last year to start the year, but they had Devontae Adams. And they didn't really do anything in the preseason to kind of get ready for the regular season. This year, kind of the same thing, but this is different. They don't have the receivers this year. It's much worse. And they have a bunch of dudes who are young dudes who are not ready yet for the NFL, in my opinion. So, you know, I think that makes it tougher on Aaron Rodgers, and that's going to test his patience. We already saw there were 8 billion cutaways to his facial expressions when plays weren't being made. You had that long Christian Watson drop that should have been a touchdown, and you cut to his face, Aaron Rodgers' face, and it's just like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. That's going to be par for the course, I fear, this season. But the reason they kind of felt that way, you know, Minnesota did an excellent job against them. They held them to 7 points today, and Justin Jefferson absolutely annihilated the Packers. We'll get into that later, but Jefferson, amazing today. Amazing. I was so impressed with what he did, and he is rapidly becoming the NFL's best receiver. Number 5. This one is dipping into the water a little bit for next week. I really think, and I'm not going to say this is a must-win. It's not a must-win in week 2. But the Chargers, I think, have to beat the Chiefs here. Because, and that's the Thursday night game this coming week, the Chargers have to establish themselves as a Super Bowl contender in their own minds. They may think that now because they have this guy, they have that guy, they have this guy. That's fine. But they beat the Chiefs in Kansas City. They've had success in Kansas City as of late, but they've got to do it in their building, and that's been the one place that's been tough for them. The Chiefs, while they've struggled, oddly enough, in Arrowhead against the Chargers, they've played pretty well in Los Angeles so far since the Chargers moved to LA, so that's got to stop. If the Chargers want to have any hope of becoming a playoff team, of becoming a Super Bowl team, they've got to take care of business on Thursday night at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, let's get to it. Let's get to the week 1 slate. What a weird week it was. We'll start Sunday Night Football. Cowboys losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 19-3. The big news, Dak Prescott out several weeks, according to owner Jerry Jones, with a right thumb injury. And it looked like in the second half that Prescott hit a couple of Tampa defenders in the hand twice, and that caused him discomfort in his hand. He had to come out of the game, and it was revealed that he has to get surgery now on his right thumb. That is a terrible, terrible, terrible turn of events for the Cowboys, because now Cooper Rush comes in to play quarterback, and I got to tell you, if Dak is out, quote, several weeks, that's 1 week too many. I think the Cowboys season's already over. Forget about what Washington did today. Forget about what the Giants did today. and even to a lesser degree, forget about what the Eagles did today. The Cowboys have not made the playoffs in back-to-back seasons since 2006, 2007. This is one of the reasons why. Just dumb plum luck. And in this situation here, you've got it. But also, you watch that game tonight, their weapons were non-existent. Tampa took all of their weapons away, basically, to where you just had Zeke and Tony Pollard put together a decent rushing attack. But in terms of throwing the football, Dalton Schultz had an okay game, and CeeDee Lamb had some moments every now and again, but Noah Brown was all right, but they don't have the guys. They don't have the horses to kind of carry him through, and that's going to be a big problem for Dallas now that Cooper Rush is in the mix. I mean, it's one thing to have Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and all these guys kind of hovering around the offense with a backup quarterback, then maybe you got a chance to move the ball. But when you take away the weapons and then take away the guy who's throwing the ball to them, it's over. If you have any fantasy stock, by the way, in the Cowboys, you best sell that mess ASAP. As far as the Bucs go, Leonard Fournette, 127 yards on the ground. Tampa, so with their offensive line problems, they had a hard time protecting Tom Brady. They gave up a couple of sacks in key moments on the night. Micah Parsons had a nice game. And I think because of that, Tampa really wasn't as aggressive throwing the football as they've been in years past. Fournette got those 127 yards rushing on the ground on 21 carries. So they also kind of limited Tom Brady's attempts as well. Brady didn't throw the ball a ton tonight, went over 200 yards passing. He had a touchdown to Mike Evans and then threw a horrible interception in the second half that, lucky for him, it did not get the Cowboys back into the game. But Brady, not his best stuff tonight, but he showed the arm. He showed the deep ball to Julio Jones, who played a major role tonight for the Bucs in the win. Tampa, it looks like, probably will be without the services of Chris Godwin, who came back. I thought he came back way too quick from the ACL injury, and you're worried about him re-aggravating that. He pulls a hamstring tonight, and you'd have to think because of that hamstring injury, he's going to be hard-pressed to get back out on the field anytime soon. Hamstring injuries are very, very finicky things, so we'll see if Godwin can come back. But a big win for the Bucs in terms of grabbing a win on the road with a tough schedule coming up. They'll see the Saints on Sunday. As for the Cowboys, they will play host to the next team that we are going to talk about. How about that mess in Cincinnati? The Steelers 23, the Bengals 20 in overtime. Joe Burrow, 4 turnovers, 3 interceptions. This game basically came down to a couple of things. So the Bengals long snapper gets hurt late in the game, and it sets up the following sequence. The Bengals are trying to get in the end zone to potentially take the lead from the Steelers. Burrow to chase, ties the game at 20. If they get the extra point, they win the game with just seconds left. And what happens? The extra point gets blocked, in part due to the replacement snapper. And look, in that situation, everything has to be right in order for a kick to work in most cases. And the snap was off just a little bit, allowed the Steelers to kind of shoot in and block the field goal. Minka Fitzpatrick with the block on the extra point, and that pushed it to overtime. Both teams missing opportunities in OT to potentially win the game. Again, the Bengals have a shot. High snap on the kick by Evan McPherson. He shanks it badly. Then Chris Boswell gets an opportunity to hit a game-winning field goal. He hits it off of the the left upright. That's no good. The Bengals get the ball back. They can't take advantage eventually. The Steelers get it back, hit the game-winning field goal thanks to Chris Boswell, and grab the win 23-20. But it came at a significant cost for the Bengals and the Steelers. The Bengals obviously losing at home. And, if you're Cincinnati, that's the other team I was worried about in terms of talking about teams that won't make the playoffs. Cincinnati had a lot of luck to get to the Super Bowl because of things that happened in the wild card round, in the divisional round, in the championship game, and almost in the Super Bowl. And eventually that luck's going to turn on you. And it did here a little bit on Sunday against the Steelers. As far as problems go for the Steelers, Najee Harris suffered an ugly foot injury. He got bent backwards, and he was seen in a walking boot leaving the locker room. So we'll see how that goes. But the big news for the Steelers, TJ Watt, torn pec. He's probably out 3 to 4 months. That was the early suggestion made in terms of his prognosis. That is a terrible injury for the Steelers. We'll see if they're able to survive that. We talked about it a little while ago. Vikings 23, Packers 7. Justin Jefferson, huge day for him. 158 yards receiving in the first half. Finished with 184 and 2 scores on the day. Aaron Rodgers, 22 of 34, 195 yards and an interception. Blah. Terrible performance by Rodgers, but again, those rookie receivers did not help him out. The young receiving group that hasn't played together did not help him out. And that is going to be an ongoing theme, I think, throughout the season. The Packers play the Bears next Sunday night on Sunday Night Football. And I got to tell you, that is low-key already a big game. The Bears won it against San Francisco. We'll talk about that coming up. But, if you're the Packers, you don't want to start 0-2. And Minnesota has the offense to be able to deal with anybody. And if Justin Jefferson plays like that, they're going to be a problem for a lot of people. Kevin O'Connell has that offense humming. They look pretty good today in the win against Green Bay. We talked about it a little bit at the top. The Chiefs 44, the Cardinals 21. Patrick Mahomes 30 of 39, 360 yards, 5 touchdowns. Travis Kelce, 8 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown. The Chiefs just throw a bunch of gaga at you and make you think. And that's what it seems like the problem is with a lot of these defenses. The Chiefs make you think, and when they make you think, you're probably going to make the wrong decision. And that's what it seems like the Chiefs were doing with the Cardinals. They just kept throwing guy after guy after guy out there, and eventually you're going to be worried about all this other stuff, and you're going to lose the centering point, and it's like, we got to stop Travis Kelce. They did not. 8 for 121 and a score for one of the greatest of all time at the tight end position. The Cardinals, dead on arrival in this one. Borderline no-show from the Cardinals on Sunday. Chargers 24, Raiders 19. Justin Herbert, 279 yards through the air, 3 touchdown passes. Keenan Allen left this game with a leg injury. I believe it was a hamstring injury. So that kind of made it a little bit more difficult on the Los Angeles Chargers offense. But Herbert with the big plays to save the day. Khalil Mack, big plays for the Chargers after being acquired by the Chargers. 3 sacks on Sunday. Devontae Adams in his first game as a Las Vegas Raider, 10 catches, 141 yards, but it was not enough because the Chargers sacked Derek Carr, the quarterback of the Raiders, 6 times. And again, these AFC West games are going to be high-level football, and the Chargers draw first blood in that divisional battle. And for them, that's important because, you've got your first couple of games here against divisional foes, and you've got to be able to take advantage of it. And the Chargers here grab a big win against the Raiders, who beat them and knocked them out of the playoffs last season. So the Chargers and Chiefs on Thursday night should be a special game coming up on Thursday night, and Amazon. Hopefully you can find it. I fear for the older fans that they're going to struggle finding the game on the Amazon Video app, but we'll see how that goes. Colts and Texans tie at 20. I thought this was the most shocking result of the week because the Texans have just been kind of nondescript for most of the year outside of the Deshaun Watson stuff. And now they had the Colts dead to rights. They let them off the hook. They were up 20-3 in the game, had an opportunity to potentially score an OT. They punt late in overtime and decide, you know what? We're just going to play for the tie, and it's a bad break a little bit for them. The Colts on the other side of it, Rodrigo Blankenship misses a field goal in overtime. Jonathan Taylor had a huge game for the Colts, 161 yards and a score. He carried the ball 31 times. He got off to a slow start in the game, but heated up as it wore on, and he helped get the Colts back into the game, but it's a tie. 20-20 tie between the Colts and the Texans. I was stunned by that. I was like, are the Colts serious? This is a team that people really like to potentially get out of the AFC, and they could not even get out of Houston with a dub. So a bad job by the Indianapolis Colts. Bears 19, 49ers 10 in the rain in Chicago. The 49ers led this game 10-0, but the Bears turned it around quickly. The news coming out of this game, a couple of things from the 49ers perspective. First, Trey Lance, 13 of 28, 164 yards, and an interception. A rubbish performance, I thought, by Trey Lance. Not great. But again, can you be shocked? He's a rookie quarterback in all essence. I mean, this guy is just, he's just getting it together. You know, it's funny. The then San Diego Chargers saw arguably the best team in their franchise's history go 14-2 in the regular season, and then when the playoffs came around, they were essentially hamstrung because their quarterback was Phil Rivers, who was, I believe, at that point in his third year, but only really been playing 2 years. So when you have these young guys on these Super Bowl-ready rosters, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb when they don't play well. So the 49ers are going to have to be very careful with that because, 13 of 28 for 164 yards, I get that it was in the rain, but in the same regard, like, come on. He's got to play better than that. Elijah Mitchell, running back for the 49ers, reportedly suffered a serious knee injury. We'll see where that goes. Justin Fields with a couple of touchdown passes for the Bears to help Chicago win their first game of the season. Eagles 38, Lions 35. The Eagles looked terrible early on in this game. Actually trailed 7-0. But A.J. Brown of the Eagles, to his credit, helped dominate the day for the Birds. 10 catches, 155 yards. Best performance ever by an Eagle in their debut as a wide receiver. It was really him and Jalen Hurts against that Lions defense. So Hurts throws for 243 yards, and 155 of that goes to A.J. Brown. That shows you what the passing game that day was operating at in terms of other wide receivers. It was the A.J. Brown show. Meanwhile, Jalen Hurts, we mentioned, threw for 243. He also ran 17 times for 90 yards. I'm sorry. I just don't like these quarterbacks taking all these hits, running the ball. I just think you're asking for it. You're asking for bad stuff to happen, man, to have your quarterback run and run and run and run and run the football. Not great, but the Eagles get away with it against Detroit, who was game. Detroit fell in a hole in the contest, dug out of it, got within 3, but then couldn't get the subsequent stops down the line to get the ball back late in the fourth quarter and at least try to tie the game. Instead, it was a 3-point win for the Eagles, who escaped Motown with a season-opening victory, and they share first place with the Washington Commanders and the team we're going to talk about next, the New York Football Giants, 21-20 winners over the Tennessee Titans in Nashville. Saquon Barkley runs for 164 yards. The key play here, though, the Giants get the game to 20-19 on a touchdown late and then decide to go for 2. And you've got to credit Brian Daboll to have the guts to go for 2 in his first game as head coach. If he misses that, you're going to be thinking about that for a while. But he did a great job, great call. They get a quick pass inside to Saquon Barkley, who looked like he had been face masked during the play, but he scored nonetheless to put the Giants up by a point. And then the Giants on the other side of it, defensively, see the Titans go back down the field. The Titans end up trying to kick a field goal to get the win. It sails wide left, and the Giants grab the win on the road. An impressive performance by the Giants late to end up grabbing the 1-point win over the Tennessee Titans. Again, I think the Titans are in big trouble. They haven't looked good for a while now. You go back to kind of how they got the number 1 seed in the AFC last season. They kind of just basically backed into it because of what was going on with Kansas City. So, they get lucky. They don't have to play an extra round in the playoffs, but it doesn't matter because they get booted in the divisional round by Cincinnati. So I think the Titans are going to be hard-pressed to get back to the playoffs. Saints 27, Falcons 26. Falcons blow a 26-10 lead here. The big news, Michael Thomas, a couple of touchdowns on the day for him and his return performance after really battling through injury over the last season and then at times through training camp here this year. But he grabs a couple of touchdowns, and the Falcons see a double-digit lead dissipate. I mean, if you're a Falcons fan, you are sick and tired of hearing that happening. My goodness. The Browns, 26-24 winners over the Panthers in the Baker Mayfield revenge game. He did not get his measure of revenge. He got a loss instead. Christian McCaffrey, 10 carries, 33 yards. Nick Chubb, 141 yards on the ground. Chubb was awesome for the Browns. Meanwhile, the Panthers took them a little while to get going offensively. Finally, they did. But in the end, the Browns hit a late field goal to go up by 2 and eventually win the game 26-24. The Dolphins, 20-7 winners over the Patriots. I said it a little while ago, the Patriots look listless on offense, and until that changes, they're not going to look like a playoff team. They struggled today. Mac Jones suffered a back injury late in the contest. It just doesn't look good right now if you're a Patriots fan, because they don't do anything particularly well. What on offense scares you about the Patriots? They don't have elite talent at wide receiver. They don't have elite talent anymore at tight end. They don't have elite talent at running back. That's going to make things more difficult for them down the line. So I think until the Patriots can start creating mismatches on offense again, I think it's going to be a minute before they even sniff making it back to the playoffs. You want to know something that's odd here, by the way? The Patriots fell behind in this game 17-0, which is so uncharacteristic of Bill Belichick teams. But Bill Belichick is now 0-4 against Tua. Think about that. He's 0-4 against Tua. That doesn't even seem like it's possible. That the greatest head coach in NFL history is 0-4 against Tua, who is, some people will call him a noodle arm, make fun of his delivery and all these things. It's unbelievable, but that's the situation. He's 0-4 against Tua. Wow. Good for the Dolphins. They get a key win here in the division. They've got some hopes, obviously, to make it to the postseason. The Patriots, I don't see it. I know we've got a long way to go until the postseason, but I don't see it happening for New England this year. Washington, 28-22 winners over Jacksonville. Carson Wentz throws for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns against his former head coach. I would love to have heard a mic'd conversation between those two at some point in Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson. But because basically Carson Wentz is the reason why Doug Peterson got fired. Wentz went belly up, the team went belly up, and somebody had to be left holding the bag, and it was Doug Peterson. So I can only imagine what that conversation was like for real. Ravens 24, Jets 9, Lamar Jackson 3 touchdowns. It was a lackluster game, I thought, from the Ravens early on. They led 10-3 at half and then pulled away with 14 points in the third quarter. So the Ravens, look, you knew the Ravens were going to be a little bored and disinterested going against the New York Jets, and I think that's going to be a problem with a lot of teams. They're not going to get up for the Jets, and we'll see how they respond accordingly. But the Ravens answered the bell when they needed to in that contest, and they grabbed the 15-point win over the Jets, 24-9. And incredibly, we've hit the finish line, folks. Just like that. We are done with our Week 1 review. We've got a lot more to get to throughout the course of the week. We'll have a look at Week 2 coming up. We'll talk about Chargers-Chiefs this week. We'll be around and about in the neighborhood, as they say, coming your way. Again, you can check us out on social media by looking at Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook as well, by simply searching Joe Montana's Right Arm. Until next time, that'll do it. I'm Derek Jones saying so long and happy football, everybody. See ya.